Brother Ron, and welcome to We All Be News Radio and TV, the news-free Dixie for the 21st century.
And welcome back, family, to another wonderful edutainment edition of the Artists Present We All Be Radio. I'm your host for the empowerment segment, R2, C2, H2, the Artist, also known as Brother Ron. And we got a bomb burner for you today. Got a very special show. But I believe every show is special in its own way. It's a blessing to be here with you all today to put on this format. So please feel free, family, to join us by calling in at area code 646-652-4593. That's area code 646-652-4593. If you're scared to get on the air, we're about to open up the chat room, about to come live on the chat room. You can type in your questions or comments or whatever you want, and you never know, it might be read on the air to our distinguished guests. Today's topic, of course, is the spook who knocked down the door. Once again, today's title of the segment is The Spook Who Kicked Down the Door. Interview with the Irritated Genie. If you've been in a lamp for a while or under a rock, you should have been knowing what happened this past summer was very hot. Brother A.L.L, also known as the Irritated Genie, was quote-unquote outed by the Southern Poverty Law Center and the establishment media for working in the Department of Homeland Security. They're accused of being a black supremacist. So we'll be having the guy on, known as the Irritated Genie, to talk about his perspective and some things you might not know about that happen behind the scenes as it relates to his quote-unquote outing. And also he will discuss people's perception of him in the community as being a secret agent, double agent, whatever you want to call it, agent provocateur, as well as his ideology, philosophy, and some other things. It should be an interesting show, everybody. Once again, we're about to get ready, get down, get dirty, and get blessed. Scholars and laymen, ladies and gents, boys and girls, change agents, and double agents of all types. I bring forth none other than the person that I truly, regardless, I want to say this. I know I had a disclaimer. The views of my guests are not necessarily or is the views of We All Be Group Incorporated. I just want to put that out there because I get a lot of calls or emails from people saying that, hey, you know, why so? But I believe this. I believe in freedom of expression. I don't believe in censorship. I believe that if a person stands by what he or she says, then they have the right to air their opinion. If they own it, they have a right to share it or to show it. So I don't have no problem with that. But I do have a problem with people who consider themselves to be, quote-unquote, liberal or open-minded, but yet every time they want to shut down somebody else who don't share their same opinion or point of view. So this is what I'm all about, freedom of expression and no censorship. So without further ado, I give you the one and only Brother Irritated Genie of Southeast. How you doing today, sir?
Doing fantastic. Appreciate the introduction, my brother.
I try my best as I can, but you are something else, man. You are, like what Duke Ellington say, another Washingtonian beyond category. And I just, like, you know, I saw the things that broke over the summer, and I was kind of questioning the timing of it all and why now. I just want to give you a chance on my platform to talk about some of the things that went down and also your point of view.
Yeah, for people that know, part of War on the Horizon, an organization of Africans who are working to protect the future of African people. And we do a lot of lectures, we do a lot of discussions, we do a lot of, we create culture, music, information, education for African people to prepare ourselves to survive the 21st century. And long story short, working out here on my own, I'd worked for the federal government since I left college. And I was doing that, and then on the side, of course, I was a Pan-Africanist. That's what I really did. But, you know, I had a regular job, and I left the government back in 2003 and did, you know, nationalism full-time. But quite frankly, we made a lot of the products, but we didn't anticipate people would steal them, so was losing a lot of money. Wasn't able to financially continue to be viable, about to lose the house and all that kind of stuff. So went back to work. And the place that was hiring in the city I live in, Washington, D.C., was Department of Homeland Security. And, of course, being someone who's working on behalf of African people, but living in Washington, D.C., it would have been my last choice if I had to pick what place I'd be working. I wouldn't even thought I'd have done it, but that was the place that was hiring. Somebody I knew that I had trained back in the day, found out I was looking for a job. They were like, yo, we can get you up in here. It's not a problem, because they knew the kind of job I did. So I came in there, went in there, was doing fine, had some issues with some of the managers. Was about to leave. They wanted me to stay. They moved me to a different position. And it was a position I liked. Basically, I was protecting small businesses. So they moved me to a position where I'm protecting small businesses from being able to be harmed. And long story short, in doing that, you run into a lot of corruption. Like, you don't understand how much corruption and theft and racism. I'm talking about, we think of the police pulling over a black person and brutalizing them as the prototype of racism in this country. But racism is on all levels. If some of the corruption, theft, and racism that I was facing in the capacity of trying to help small businesses was some of the worst and ugliest racism I've seen in terms of the intensity and the ramifications. How many dollars are being stolen from black people? How many jobs are being taken from black people? How many glass ceilings are being put over black people? Just everything you can imagine. So on the one hand, I'm trying to be quiet because I do what I do as the Irritated Genie of Southeast out here, so I don't want to ruffle too much stuff. At the same point in time, I'm an African, and I'm a freedom fighter. No matter where I am, if I see somebody doing black people wrong, I'm going to fight. I can't not fight. I don't have the ability to turn a blind eye to black people being mistreated. So basically, I started fighting hard, and they knew who I was, who I am. They knew who I was, and they knew who I am. So, but they didn't really have anything to fight me for. I didn't break any rules. So, long story short, over the course of a year, they've been working to try to get rid of me. And I just easily outmaneuvered them. I didn't really know what was going on at the time. But they were upset because I had reported some of the corruption. And they were like, we got to get this guy out of here, because it's a lot of money, man. I was messing with a lot of money. So I didn't know it, but I was. So anyway, they finally just put me under a racist because they knew we had a problem. I outmaneuvered her. And it got to the point where they got so mad, they just said, let's just report this stuff to the media. Because then it will create a situation where the American public will say, this guy, look at this hate-filled guy, he got to get out of here, and pretty much blow my cover and make it very difficult for me to keep the position and for them to continue the corruption, because they don't have anybody there like me who will fight it. So that's essentially what happened. That's pretty much what happened. I'm fighting against racism, theft, corruption, and whatever you can call it in the federal government, while at the same time I'm doing the work I do out here. And they use what I'm doing out here to put before the world to say, hey, we got to get rid of this guy.
You know what? I want to ask you, there's a couple of things I want to ask you. I know you said that you talked about the corruption in the Department of Homeland Security in the area that you work. But a lot of folks would say that you brought this on to yourself because, like, it's like you gave them the bullets to put in the gun to use to shoot you with, the character assassinate you. Because even the clip we played about you saying that President Obama is a mulatto faggot, I mean, they didn't even play that part on CNN. They just played a snippet of that audio. But the fact that you said, Obama is mulatto faggot, and you talked about Michelle Obama, some people might think of you as being homophobic and even sexist and chauvinistic.
Well, I'm definitely against homosexuality, so I'm not going to use the term homophobic, even though I think any intelligent person should be afraid of a mind and a mentality that a male wants to sexually violate another male. That's pretty frightening that somebody's mind works that way, but I wouldn't classify myself as homophobic. I say I'm an African. I'm a black man, and a black man is supposed to be with a black woman. And if a black man wants to be with anybody other than a black woman, then he's made a mistake. He's made the wrong decision. He doesn't adequately understand what it means to be a black man. And I say the same thing for a black woman. The only proper mate for a black woman is a black man. So yeah, I'm against homosexuality, and that's my job to save my race. Anybody who is relevant to the black race at this time would have to be fighting against homosexuality if they consider themselves a social activist on behalf of African people. The relevant thing that our children are dealing with is sexual abuse. If you're out here calling yourself a Pan-Africanist or a community activist and you're not addressing sexual abuse of our children and the resulting behavior, misbehavior, which is homosexuality, which they're pushing on our men, women, and children, then what are you addressing? And so, in that capacity, to some degree, I did bring it on myself because the job I was working was just a job. That's how I financed my ability to save my race. But at the end of the day, the job is used to save the race. It's used to finance to save the race. It's not that I use the nationalism to do nothing for the job. So who I really am is the African trying to save my race. That's just the way that I finance it. So if I had to say something that would be used against me at the job and say you got to go, but then I just have to go. Or whatever happens. But at the end of the day, my job is my fiduciary responsibility is to my race. I can't say, well, I would say this. Well, I could, but I just choose not to. I could say it, but I'm not going to say. I could say that homosexuality is killing our people. But if I say that, then I'm attacking the whole infrastructure that's trying to destroy my people. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to keep my job. Now, I'm making $115,000 a year, and I know that by doing what I'm doing, at some point, I've been working there 4 years. I know at some point if the jig is going to be up, but I'm not going to not fight for my people to try to save a job that's not guaranteed to me anyway.
What about the fact you said Obama is a mulatto faggot? What do you mean by that? What were you referencing?
I'm referencing the fact that not only is he a practicing white sex offender, but that he's mulatto. He's not a black man. We keep calling him a black man, but we forget he comes from the white womb. And Chancellor Williams told us in the destruction of black civilization. And we can just see it around in our everyday lives. We can see this in our everyday lives. As a class, the mulattoes side against black people. They work, matter of fact, Chancellor Williams said they'd have been the best agent in support of white domination of black people, has been the mulatto. And if we look at whenever whites start creating a bunch of mulattoes throughout history, whether it was in Haiti, whether it was in Kemet, ancient Africa, whenever they want to seize control of an African region or do harm to black people in a very massive, direct way, they do not like to do it themselves because it creates a backlash of black people against white authority. They would prefer to put a black, or if not black, one of their children with a darker tint, that they have a mulatto child, in the position to assault black people. So as a class, the mulatto class has always, as a class, fought against black people. As individuals, there have been a few good mulattoes here or there. But in general, they side and do harm to black people. And that's what we see in the case of Barack Obama. He's a white sex offender that's promoting white sex, homosexuality, and sexual degeneracy in black communities in America, throughout the continent of Africa. He's promoting the worst type of misbehavior and social dysfunction to our people he can possibly promote. And he comes from the white womb, so we shouldn't be surprised of it. Matter of fact, that's part of the reason why he was put there. In reference to what I said about Michelle Obama, I think anybody should be able to be reasonable and understand. What I said was, and if you look at the People magazine cover with her on it, why is a black woman in the position of the president's wife wearing lace and lingerie on the cover of a magazine? You have never before seen a president's wife being paraded around before the world as a sexual object. It is eerily reminiscent of slavery, and it does nothing to help the self-esteem of our daughters. It doesn't do anything to help us as black men to convince our daughters not to go in the direction of being half naked and wanting to be a sexual object. All it does is it reinforces the idea that black women are sexual objects, and that's all they're good for. So if she wanted to do something that was a statement, she should get a natural hairstyle, which would make black women around the world who are bleaching their skin and hating what they look like and frying their heads to realize they can be natural, they can love themselves, because the president's wife loves herself if she wanted to do something. But instead, she chooses to go out half-dressed, and so it was inappropriate.
And also, I like for you to address, too, I know I had a chance to actually ask the famous lecturer and author, Tariq Nasheed of Hidden Colors fame, about your situation. Like, he's been going on his platform saying that you are an agent. And, people really, he got a lot of influence in the black community, Tariq Nasheed. And I was going to get your take about that, because a lot of people do think that you are an agent. Like you said, you was making $115,000 a year, getting paid by the government, but you was not making any type of, I guess, income from your activist activities. How would you explain that? Or what are your thoughts on that?
And I don't know much about this Najib character. I know that he's not a social activist in the African community, so he's not somebody that I would find relevant as a real freedom fighter, what his opinion is. But I would say this: I understand the position and the mentality of your average black person that hears a person working with the government, because this is what happens. Since we found out about COINTELPRO, how they get government-paid informants to undermine the nationalist community and kill our leaders, it has properly sent a level of fear or concern and apprehension in the minds of people who want to do something for black people. And it should. This is the problem, though. The fear and apprehension and the concern has gone to the point of becoming irrational and thoughtless and pretty much ridiculous. Consider the fact that, first of all, we all would know this. This is for a thinking person who uses their brain. An agent for the government that's sent to undermine the African-centered community doesn't go to work every day. Their work is being an African-centered community. In other words, they don't have an office. They meet in a back alley somewhere, or they meet somewhere and they get their instructions. They don't work a real government job every day sitting at an office with their name where everybody can see them. It would defeat the purpose, because particularly with the internet today, if I'm listed one place with my real name and my full duties and responsibilities, and everybody can see that, then it would be pretty much ridiculous and impossible for me, on the other hand, to be an undercover agent, because I'm not undercover. I'm in wide space. The whole purpose of being an undercover agent and working on behalf of the government is no one knows that you work for the government. In fact, people believe that you are authentically part of the movement. They have no idea how you come up with all of this money and how you get the access to all of this stuff, but you just do it, and it's kind of amazing, and then you start trouble amongst African people. And you advocate drug use. You advocate homosexuality. You advocate acceptance of things that are not good for the black community. If anybody has any amount of intellect or intelligence or just even reasonable person, they would look at what we do, and you just look at any glance, a cursory glance at anything Irritated, Genie, or One Horizon has done, and the intelligent person says, well, they can't be working for the government. Why? Well, he's calling, the whole push is for our people to accept Obama. When the Obama campaign was going on, the Irritated Genie was coming out there telling us he's going to be promoting homosexuality in Africa. Don't support this guy. He's one of the few voices that was saying it. Well, the government wouldn't pay him to speak out against Obama when he's working for Obama. That doesn't make any sense. Another thing, and this one really is a telltale story for a thinking person. Mm-hmm. I have the key to the African mind. I mean, you've seen some of the work that we do. Right. And I'm saying beyond a reasonable shadow of a doubt, I'm telling people, I mean, I don't have a problem saying it. If you put any black person in front of me and they give me an audience, you give me 3 hours, I'm going to capture their mind, because I have that key. Here's the thing, though. If you're an agent, you are given access to black people because you're an agent. You got a job to do to undermine black people. So the government will make sure that you get as much exposure and access to black people as possible, because that's your job. You never heard of an agent that couldn't get access or didn't have money or resources. That doesn't exist, because that's the very reason that the agent exists. On the contrary, the only reason I'm not having and we're not having more impact is because the doors to access to African people in our minds have been closed to us. So, like for instance, right now at Lincoln University, the Obama administration has made a mandate that every college, and that's HBCUs, historically black colleges and universities, every single black college and colleges in general that receive government money, which is most of them, must have at least one event per year promoting homosexuality. So right now, we see an event recently at Lincoln University where they're promoting homosexuality to the black students. And even if the faculty and the administrators don't agree with it, if they're going to receive funding and keep their school alive and viable, they're forced to do it. But at the same time, brothers and sisters like myself who have a message to tell our children this is a bad policy, it's a bad direction to go for, this is destructive to the African community, we don't have access to the same doors. The money goes to these other individuals who are trying to destroy and dismantle black culture and black family, but the people like myself that's fighting to do it don't get access. If I was an agent, if I was working for the devil, then they would make it possible. I would speak at every college and university in this country every weekend. I would not even get a chance to talk to you. I'd be too busy because they want me, whatever they got me to do, they want me to be able to be effective in doing that. And the only way you can be effective as an agent is to have access. So to that, I'm just saying, I don't really listen to a lot of the stuff people say because it's not coming from people that think. Once a person sits down and thinks, all you have to do, even though we don't know what the modern COINTELPRO looks like, we don't know until somebody comes out and tells us. What we do know, the basic premise of a trader is that they're going to encourage us to do negative things. They're going to encourage us to fight one another. And they are going to take information from us and give to the government. The problem with that notion with myself is I'm the one bringing the information. The government don't have the information and the analysis that I bring down. If you look at the information that we provide, if you look at any of these videos, the feminization of the black male parts 1 through 4, the analysis I do of the European mind and European behavior, they don't have that nowhere. That's my analysis. They cannot give it to me because they don't analyze and study themselves. They study us because they want to kill us. And if you want to kill a group of people, you need to know those people. Well, I study them because they're the ones that's killing us. They don't have no way to tell me how to study them because they don't study themselves. And so if I'm giving you a read and a study and a breakdown intellectually of what we are facing, that doesn't exist. It's coming from me. So how can I be a government agent when what they would be paying me to give, they don't have? What they have is drugs. I ain't giving you no drugs. I'm telling you not to do dope. They got bad psychology and words, so they want you to use the N-word. I don't ever call you the N-word. I tell you not to use that. It kills yourself. They have integration, telling us to out our race. You see it all over. I don't tell you to date outside your race. I tell you as a black man, be loyal to your black women. Black women, be loyal to your black man. They tell you to be a homosexual. I don't tell you to be a homosexual. Everything that the enemy wants to give you, then you know who your traitors are because that's what they're giving you. They're giving you what the devil wants you to have. All you got to do is look at what's happening to our community, and if you want to know who the traitors are, look and see who's advocating on any level the stuff that's killing our community. Nobody can say that anything that we produce is doing anything but helping our community. In fact, I would say, tell me who's giving more information critical to the sustenance and survival of African people than One Horizon. I don't even think it exists.
I want to say, too, man, there's so many things like questions or answers you gave and also things I'm thinking about as I'm listening to you talk. Number one, I believe with the Honorable Brother Dick Gregory that the best black leadership that we have produced, a lot of them have their roots in the HBCUs. I mean, you're a product of Hampton University. You see what I'm saying? You're a product of the HBCU. So many of our great leaders and innovators were products who either went or taught at HBCUs. So it's funny now that HBCUs are under attack at this moment when we need a strong foundation for our community. A couple other things as well. I think you did a great job articulating what an agent really is, because I believe that we are all informants. You know, if you got a Facebook profile, if you got a Twitter account, if you got an Instagram, you are an informant. It does not make you an agent provocateur. I think that's the thing that it was interesting a couple of years ago when it came out that Ernest Withers was a paid FBI informant. I mean, he was a freelance photographer. He used to be a Memphis police officer. But the thing about it is, if he's a freelance photographer, I mean, an FBI agent can say, okay, I want to buy that picture from you. Who are these people in this picture? He was not an agent provocateur in the sense that he actually helped mastermind or help aid in the mastermind and undermining of the movement. But he was documenting the movement, so it made him a valuable source of information. So I definitely agree with you a lot of your points. I don't consider you in the same realm as a William O'Neill, who set up Fred Hampton, who was an agent provocateur. Fred Hampton's bodyguard, who set him up. I think it's interesting that you raise a lot of interesting points that people really need to address, because, like, when I first met you back in March and Cynthia McKinney, you didn't hide anything. I remember when the email went out to our group that met with Cynthia McKinney down in Georgia. They said, oh, he works for the Department of Homeland Security. Your name was prominently featured on the website. You wasn't hiding that. Even in some of your lectures, you talk about the reasons why you had to go back to get a government job, because the movement doesn't pay. I mean, Malcolm was broke when he died. He had $6. He didn't have no money in the bank. Dr. King didn't have no money. The movement does not pay. You got to do this for the love of your people if you're going to serve the people. You got to love the people inside themselves, because our people have been so conditioned. So I want to thank you for making those points very clear. And also I want to bring up the fact that you spoke of the media backlash of what came out this summer. I know one of the organizations leading the charge was the Southern Poverty Law Center. Now, the reason why I want to bring them up, because a couple of years ago I interviewed a guy you would classify as a small head, a Jewish guy, right, a white Jew. You call him small head. Now, this small head, as you would classify him, he brought it to my attention and said, hey, you need to really look into the Southern Poverty Law Center. He told me about this website called Charity Navigator. Now, I went on there. Southern Poverty Law Center was really started by what you call a small head, a Jewish lawyer down in Alabama. He helped this woman who lost her son in the hanging sue the United Clans of America. She got all their real estate property. But look, you fast forward to almost 40 years later. Southern Poverty Law Center, you go to Charity Navigator, they have an endowment of over $250 million in assets. They have over $250 million at their disposal. Morris Dees and his partner are both getting paid over $300,000 a year. And they're stationed down in Montgomery, but look at the condition of black folks in Montgomery or around the country. We have spending power, but don't have no buying power. Those two different things. So, I just think the interest, like, here you are, you a government employee making $115,000 a year. You're doing all this activist work, trying to liberate black folks with your lectures and your books and your videos, and yet you got organizations going against you. They got over hundreds of millions worth in assets. Well, you ain't have that type of access. Like you said, if you was really an agent, you would have more access. So I know it's a long rant, but I just wanted to get your thoughts.
And I'm going to say a few things. The first thing to say is just another point in the tank. If I was working on behalf of the whites, then the whites would not have been putting my stuff throughout the media and putting this all over there, saying it's a hate group and all that. If I was working for them, they wouldn't do that, because that doesn't benefit them to try to do harm to their own agent. That makes no sense. But secondly, if we're talking about why would this organization care about this institution, this is what we have to understand. And this is a pretty sophisticated discussion we have in here today, but I try to make it as simplistic as possible.
Right.
We're in a situation right now where we're facing a modern civil war that's about to happen. When you see the Tea Party coming up and all this kind of stuff, and you see the Obama administration trying to take guns, and you see the increase and rise in the racist murders like Trayvon Martin and Jordan Davis and Kendrick Johnson, and you start trying to figure out the world's going crazy. No, it's not that the world's going crazy. When we really understand what's going on, it's that they're from the black perspective, there are two factions, but in reality, they're actually a three faction. For black people, the reality of it is that all the whites want to exterminate us. They're sick and tired of us being around, and they really want to kill us. And not just physically kill us. They want to miseducate us so they can have us end up in their prisons. They want to disenfranchise us so we can't get jobs, so we can't have money, so we end up in their prisons. They want to stop us from having babies. They want us to abort our babies. Just all kinds of various different forms of destruction of a race. But there are two groups of whites that are doing this, and those two groups of whites are in a fight that's going to lead to a civil war in this country. And those two groups are the small hats, the whites who call themselves Jews, and the Anglos, they're what they call the Gentiles, basically your average racist white. And so what happens is both of these groups hate us, but they fight differently. The way that the Anglo-Saxon fight is very direct and straightforward. You're a black, you're an N-word, I hate you, I'm going to fire you from jobs, I'm going to mistreat you. You know, I want you to stay in your own neighborhood. If I can't rape your women and if I can't treat you like a little boy, if you're going to stand up for yourself, then I don't want you nowhere around me. Stay in your own neighborhood and do your own stuff, get your own stores, have your own this, that, and the other. Because I don't want to see you. I don't want you dating my daughter. You stay in your part of town, I stay in my part of town. That's one enemy that we have. Then there's another guy, and that's the small hat, the white so-called Jew, the Morris Deeds group. Their thing is, no, they don't view it as black against white. That's not their view. Their view is small hats against everybody else. So they look at the white Anglo-Saxon as a slave, and they look at the black people as a slave too. So in their mind, the best way to fight, and this is their modus operandi, is to use black people to fight the Anglos and use Anglos to fight black people. So for instance, these starts out, how did he get popular? You just said it. You go to the black people who get lynched by the Klan. Why does he hate the Klan? Because the Klan hates small hats. Mm-hmm. So the Klan hates white so-called Jews. He wants to do in the Jews. How does he do it? Does he go from the Jewish perspective? No, he didn't have that power then. Use the black folks who are mad at the Klan for killing our people, and we go in there, he helps us in court and destroy them. He looks like a friend to black people. But then flip it around on the reverse end, when you have a black person saying, hey, we about to have genocide committed against us, and when these white folks come to kill us, we're going to have to be prepared to do whatever we need to do to survive, which means we're going to have to be armed and we're going to have to fight back. So you say that, but then you also are making people aware of the fact that blacks are being attacked by small hats through the media, and that these small hats are promoting homosexuality on African people, and that they're destroying the economics and ravaging the African continent, and they're putting out these diseases, and they're giving these vaccines, and you start pointing out that these white so-called Jews, these small hats, are behind all of these evil things that are happening in the community, that they're the ones undermining black independent economic progress. When you start talking about this stuff, now you become an issue for the small hats too. So then they go and tell the Anglo-Saxon about you. And so then they get all the races like, we need to go kill these N-words, listen to what he's saying. So they fight by proxy. And so the reason they don't like me, or they don't like On the Horizon, if we were just talking about being anti-white, they wouldn't have a problem with that. Matter of fact, they would like that because then they could use that as a balance to keep whites and black people constantly at each other's odds, not paying attention to what the white small hats are doing. But since we identify the small hats as the problem, anybody that identifies as the problem, they seek to destroy. So now the effort is to destroy One Horizon, and what we're doing, because we're identifying them and making our people more aware of their particularity and peculiarity in the oppression of African people. So that's what this is all about.
And also I want to get to, I want to talk about the origins of the name. Hello?
Yes.
All right, I was talking about the origins of the name, the Irritated Genie, because I think people don't really understand what the significance of their name. A lot of us don't understand the significance of their name. Can you please explain the origins of the name, the Irritated Genie?
Yeah, there's a book called The Irritated Genie. It's by Jacob Carruthers, and that book is about the Haitian Revolution. And in the Haitian Revolution, our brothers and sisters in Haiti had to fight the English, they had to fight the Spanish, they had to fight the Portuguese, I'm not sure, and they had to defeat the French army. They defeated the greatest European armies in the world at that time. And they did it through a process of where they adopted what our ancestors called the angry spirit of the Haitian people. Meaning we were so angry about the oppression and the racism that we had faced that we developed the ability to become as mean-spirited and angry and violent as even our white oppressors. So that angry spirit to say, hey, if you're going to cut me in half, I'm going to cut you in a quarter. And if you're going to kill my babies, then I'm going to kill your babies and their grandbabies. well, if you're going to hang 20 of our people, then we're going to hang 30 of yours. And our battle cries went from freedom or death to atrocity for atrocity, meaning that we would meet every element of aggression that the whites came with a higher level of aggression to prove that we were going to be free. When that happened, that book came out about the Irritated. The Haitians beat that revolution. It's the single revolution in the history of the world where captured and kidnapped and enslaved people overthrew their oppressors in a foreign land and became an independent government. And it's the prize of African warfare, and it's the big secret in white warfare in terms of losing. And so it's that spirit that I come in, the spirit of our Haitian brothers and sisters and our ancestors who fought tyranny and racism and oppression and outmaneuvered and outfoxed their white enemies so that they could be free.
And also, when they had to do that, they also had to work with the enemy, right? They had to gain access to the enemy, right? Some people worked for the army, right, for the French army. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Yes,
most of the leaders in the Haitian Revolution were former, some of them, like Christophe, fought in the American Revolution, if I'm not mistaken. Some of them fought for the Americans, some of them fought for the French. Most of them had military training. Dessalines, Jean-Jacques Dessalines, I don't believe did. He was just a brilliant warrior, just with pure African genius. He couldn't read or write, but the majority of the people who led the armies did. It was Jean-Jacques Dessalines, in fact, when Toussaint Louverture was captured by the French, and the people of Haiti were nervous that they were going to lose the war. Dessalines told all the people, he said, listen, he had a huge meeting with all his generals. He said, you tell the people not to become confused. He said, no matter how many promises I make the whites, I've only deceived them 1,000 times. He said, tell them not to pay attention to what they see me doing in the next few years, because all that I'm doing for the purpose of preparing our people to be in a position to win. So he actually joined the French army and became a leading general in the French army. And through mock battles, when he went to battles in the woods, he would engineer the process of taking weapons from the French and giving the weapons to his men in the mountains. And he used his position in the army to arm all of his brothers and sisters in the mountains. And then eventually he defected, went back to the mountains and said, now let's put all of the French out. And they went to war and they defeated the French. They killed 40,000 French troops and expelled the French from Haiti. And for a brief period of time, were a completely free and independent nation.
Yeah, well, that's how we're doing. This is all about. This is the reason why I have this show, to give people the information they need to make better informed decisions or help better informed point of views. I want to thank you for that a quick history lesson. And also, I want to hit the phone lines real quick. If got somebody been patiently waiting to talk to you or to ask a question or to make a comment, coming from, I believe, the NYC.
Yes, sir.
Hey, so how you doing? Welcome to the show, man. It's to have you on.
Yeah, peace and blessings around the world. Finally, I made it on board. You know, I was just listening to what the brother was describing. In the Haitian, with the French and Haitian War. I had a blood relative which was involved in that, which was my great grandfather. Which only part of the Caribbean period that did a successful rebellion against the Spaniards, the French, and the Brits. If you really go through the history, there's no other Caribbean island where we was enslaved that ever took place. So, it just always questioned me, right, Ronald, is why there was no other rebellions, successful like that, like it was in Haiti. Some say because the Europeans was catching typhoid fever and whatever, and they were getting malaria and seeing mirages and stuff like that, this, that, and third. Maybe that did weigh a factor, but I don't think that's the main factor. That's what I just wanted to bring up. Maybe you could shed some light on that. I'd appreciate it.
Brother, what's your name again? I didn't mean to cut you out. What's your name again?
Sheikh Jihad Abdullah Akbar.
Yeah, I just want everybody to know. I appreciate you, man. I'll be seeing you on Facebook, and thank you for promoting the stuff that I'm doing, also for doing the things that you're doing to help liberate our people. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. Brother, I'll question. And I say to that, and this is one of the major problems, and it's even relevant to everything we're dealing with today. The thing that the Haitians were lucky with, and I'm going to have to say luck because part of it was luck, is that they dealt with their traders, and essentially this is what happened. Like, a good example. You had the opportunity in Jamaica to have the same thing that you had in Haiti. So you had Sister Nanny on one side of the island, and I believe her brother's name was Kojo on the other side of the island. But this was the problem. Nanny was fully prepared to completely remove all the whites from the island and make it an independent nation. She traveled and outmaneuvered all the way across to the other side of the island to meet with her brother to unite, but he didn't want to fight the white folks. He had fought them off enough that he had some semblance of comfort, but he wasn't prepared and he wasn't loyal enough to the interests of African people to do a full-scale, all-out, all-or-none type of war. So because of that, the Jamaicans never were able to do what the Haitians did. And you find that a lot in the islands and even in America. The difference in Haiti was that the same exact thing was going to happen in Haiti. Toussaint Louverture was very much what we would call a Negro, to some degree an Uncle Tom. But he wasn't like the Uncle Toms we have here today. He actually fought and killed French folks. But the reason he killed them is because he wanted to be accepted. So accepted Toussaint and the black people in Haiti, he still allowed the whites to keep black people in slavery. It just had to be a more tolerable slavery. But the reason that the Haitians had a victory is because when Toussaint was kidnapped and taken away, now the Haitians had a chance to really get free. And the man, Jean-Jacques Dessalines, was not like him. He was more like Boukman Dede, who started the Haitian Revolution. And the basis of the Haitian Revolution was started when Boukman said, he said the whites have two choices, to leave or die. He set down some ground rules. He said they must leave or die. And then he said something else that was very important. He said, no negotiations. Any black person who sits white to negotiate, we will kill them. Because he said we lose more at the negotiating table from white folks than we do on the battlefield, so we'll do all our negotiating on the battlefield. And they can have two choices. They can leave this island, or if they choose not to do that, we'll negotiate with them for their death. That's the only thing they can do. So when Dessalines, who had never been educated by whites, this is very important, Toussaint was educated by the whites. He loved whites. He was a Christian. He believed in their religion. He believed in them. He didn't believe that freedom would be anything if we didn't have a connection with the whites. Dessalines was very different. He was more African-centered. He looked at himself as a black man, and he looked at the whites as his pure, unadulterated enemy, and he had no room for enslavement or cooperation between the two races. His position was very simple. We are going to join with each group of whites, and this is what Boukman has set down, and Dessalines kept the promise. He said we're going to join with each group of these white folks, and then we're going to put the other group out. And eventually there'll be one left, the French. And when they're the last one, then we will turn against them and expel them. The reason that the Haitians were able to win wasn't even because of just the greatness, generalship, and the indomitable character of Jean-Jacques Dessalines, which was very important, but there was another factor, and this was very key. The reality was that the French, and let me tell this story because it's very important to understand how this works, in terms of understanding warfare. Thomas Jefferson was an American white male, and there's a special degree of intellect coming from North American whites. I don't know why, but there is. When he was looking at the Haitian Revolution, he sent a letter to Napoleon, and he told Napoleon, listen, I know that you hate Toussaint Louverture because they call him the Black Napoleon and all this kind of stuff, but Thomas Jefferson said to him, listen, don't worry about Toussaint. You can use him. He loves whites. He believes in our religion. You can work with him. He said, the real threat is this Jean-Jacques Dessalines. Do not be fooled by him. He is the real threat in this hemisphere. The reason Thomas Jefferson did that, he didn't like Napoleon. He wanted to see America expand. But he didn't want a free Haiti because he understood the thinking of Dessalines. He understood that this black man who was not coming up under European authority, was the one that would kill all whites mercilessly without any questions about it. But this other black man, who was a great general in his own right, but that loved white authority, could be easily maneuvered to do whatever they wanted, and that was Toussaint Louverture. Napoleon was very arrogant, and he didn't listen. So he sent his brother over, who eventually got killed, but then he did something that was a critical error. In Haiti, the whites and the French and the Spanish, they had created this class thing and this color thing where the mulattoes hated black people, and they wanted to keep black people enslaved, but they also hated being enslaved themselves. So the mulattoes would fight with the whites, except when the whites wanted to make them slaves, then they would fight with the black people. So Dessalines' issue and the Haitians' issue was they wasn't just fighting the white folks, they was fighting the Uncle Toms, and they was fighting the mulattoes. But when Napoleon sent Rochambeau, one of his strongest generals over there, he made a critical error. Because Rochambeau was a brutal murderer. He was just a pure butcher. He was like something that we really don't have anything in our context to understand the kind of, but to give you an example, Dr. John Henry Clark always tells a story. He told us that when Rochambeau got to the island of Haiti, he invited all the mulatto generals' wives to a party, and they came and danced and drank and had a wonderful time, and then he sat them down at the dinner table, and he said, I have a box and gifts to you. So his troops brought out the boxes and gifts, and when these mulatto females opened these boxes, it was the heads of their husbands. And he said, let me tell you something. I have just as much contempt for the lightest of you that I do for the darkest and darkest of you. All of you are a bunch of N-words to me. And his plan was very simple. He said, I'm going to kill every Haitian on this island over the age of 10 years old because y'all don't know slaves. And we're going to bring in some new slaves that know how to be good slaves and do their job. When he did that, he created such fear and terror in the hearts of the mulattoes and the black people and all these different factions that they began to look for some hope. And the only person they had amongst them who they knew had the type of tenacity and fearlessness and treachery and violence and vile ability to exude a vile nature and destruction was Dessalines. So where he was never able, the Haitians were never able to get a pure, unadulterated unity before Rochambeau. After seeing the violence that Rochambeau intended for the people on the island of Haiti, the black people then came under the leadership of Dessalines, and they said, okay, you the guy, we'll follow you, and we'll fight with you. And once they did that, we had an active, cohesive unification. Then it was an easy battle. And that's what made the difference for the Haitian brothers and sisters in Haiti and all the different islands. One, they had a leader who was not trained and taught by Europeans. He was purely an African genius and an African warlord who saw the only potential in freedom being a world or a region without any white influence, meaning white culture, language, clothing. He didn't want nothing white there. He said he wanted black dominion. There had to be a white enemy that was so violent and overtly vile, so violent and overtly hate-filled towards all black people that it destroyed the disunity and the color complexion stuff that we had going on, and it forced an active unity out of desperation. And then you had the fact that our Haitian brothers and sisters were just completely unwilling to bend to the will of European influence. And when you put those factors together, it leads to the Haitians winning and expelling Europeans, where the other islands never quite got a group of those to work in harmony and unification to see it as a black-white issue to get the whites off the island.
Thank you for sharing that stuff. It's powerful information that people might not even get a chance to look up for themselves. That's one thing I commend you on, your scholarship, your research ability, because I know one thing when people talk to me about you or email me or whatever, they say, you know, they don't like what you're saying, but they can't refute your research. I mean, you're very thorough when it comes to your research. And to make another clear point to something like Overture's love or trust of white people, it was his business partner, I think Stephen Girard, the Frenchman who became an American, who actually is considered the fourth richest or wealthiest American of all time. He actually betrayed two sons' trust and stole his fortune. The fortune he's supposed to have been using to help build Haiti after the revolution. He stole it from him, and now he's got a college in, I believe, Philadelphia, named after him, Girard College, and he donates so much money. He actually saved the American government from financial collapse during the War of 1812, using the money that supposed to went to Haiti. So this is a debt that people don't understand that America really do owe to Haiti. It's deep like that. So I want to switch up to now, speaking of history, I want to talk about your personal history. How did you end up on this road that you're on, this path of less taken or not that well paid by so many people? As you know, you think about a lot of folks, they think about getting education, getting ahead, they think about being comfortable. But you embrace that Teddy Roosevelt phrase, the strenuous life. Like you take the road that got more pebbles and rocks on it versus the paved roads. I want to know what got you on your way, on your journey.
Okay, well, the first thing was my mother. My mother was a woman. She was never actively involved in the civil rights kind of thing or nothing like that. But she, in college, she used to listen to Kwame Ture, then going by the name of Stokely Carmichael. She was part of the ending part of the late 60s, early 70s radicalism and black people, black power, more rhetoric, but all education. She took a lot of black courses, black political thought, some history courses. And so she came from the country and she had a certain type of respect and ethic and all that kind of stuff. And our family was raised, and our family comes from a region that's 10 miles away from that Turner's Rebellion. So growing up, my mother would always teach me, hey, we come from where that Turner's Rebellion was. She would always say that to me. She would always encourage me to be black. She would introduce me to different ideas. Elizabeth Middleton and his program, peace be upon him, for the people, where I got introduced to Dr. Asa Hilliard. I got introduced to Dr. Francis Cress Welding, and I'm a little child, I don't know, 7, 8 years old, 12, whatever. And so in my young life, I'm getting tuned into listening to these great educators that are talking about a black god named Asar and Amen and how our people built pyramids and civilization. And later on, of course, I run into, my mom takes me to see Minister Farrakhan when I'm about 12 or so, and I'm hearing this black man talking about he's not afraid of white folks. And I'm like, I never heard anything like this. So my mind is being conditioned with the education and my exposure to the idea of something other than the standard things that my friends are saying. I'm getting this pulse of there's something that means to be black and there's something that means to be white, and these two things ain't friendly. And I'm bad. Not totally putting it all together, but being on the road as a young person in my own mind. And, of course, I'm getting exposed to all of the African scholars, and then Public Enemy comes out. And so I'm trying to be cool and all of that, and I like the regular hip-hop, but then I start hearing this music by this group, and once I start understanding what they're talking about, it becomes, for a young person, in my opinion, it became my revolutionary struggle. I wasn't actually active doing much, but I was active in listening to music talking about, fight the power and the white power and the black, we need to stand together and learn your history and learn about, so I'm going to the mosque, Nation of Islam. I end up going to a private school in Massachusetts, so school with a bunch of small hats, didn't know it at the time, but I began to see into the brain of racism, white supremacy. I began to see how this thing is really structured, not the end results of police brutality beating us over the head, but I'm seeing who designs the police. I'm saying who designs the ideas that people take into their minds and then become their realities. I'm seeing the process of doing it, subliminal messaging. I'm taking courses in subliminal messaging at the school, thinking that it's ridiculous, who cares about this, and then finding out, whoa, I didn't really see the message in that, and finding out, whoa, there's more going on than I knew. I'm reading Dr. Wilson, and now I'm putting Malcolm X and Dr. Wilson in conjunction with this subliminal message stuff. All this stuff that I'm learning, but it all is going in one direction towards black people need to do something for ourselves. And I'm seeing South Africa, that's when there was a big move to be anti-apartheid, and I'm listening to this stuff, and people are protesting against apartheid, and and I'm seeing these whites in South Africa, and I used to write for the paper in at the private school I went to in Massachusetts. So I remember I wrote an article, and I was basically like, you know, violence is not bad because you know I was raised partly Christian. My mother told me don't believe anything to make my own decision, but I still only went to Christian churches. And then about 15, I started going to the Nation of Islam. But generally, I was raised Christian. But we get here that violence is a bad thing and that hating is a bad thing. And I always struggled with that because I was like, I hate these folks that's oppressing us, and I don't think violence is bad if you can get away with it, you know. But I felt that it was wrong because that's what I was taught. But I remember having that breakthrough mentally in high school. I said, nah, wait a minute. And I did an article basically saying violence is not bad. And I said, in South Africa, if our people are going to be free, they're going to have to be violent. If they're not going to be violent, they're not going to be free. And so I began to get a sense of what the real bottom line in this whole thing was, that we're going to have to fight. And so coming out of high school, I go to college, Hampton University, looking for a black experience, and realized that there was no, I was in the midst of a shutdown of African consciousness. The year I came, they got rid of the African Studies cluster. And I saw the black president, Harvey, of Hampton University, participating in the active destruction of any sense of black self-respect or black consciousness on that institution. So I'm witnessing the Uncle Tomism and the rise of this new Uncle Tom regime that prevents black people from having knowledge of self and having any conscious awakening. And so I'm looking for consciousness there, but I don't find it. Then I find an organization called Positive Comedic Visions. Late in my, I come out of college, I joined that organization, and they some real practical brothers talking about stopping sexual abuse in the community, which I had a friend in high school when I was at that boarding school, a Jamaican sister, who told me about being raped when she was a child. And it stuck with me like a piece of glue, man. I never was able to shake that. And after she told me that, it's like it opened up something in me. The more and more and more and more I start talking to black women, every sister I talk to, I mean, I'm only 15. From 15 to 18, I can't tell you how many women told me they were sexually abused. It got to a point where I was like, this is overwhelming. I started realizing it was an epidemic. And I mean, now, between then and now, I can't even, it would be in the thousands. So I began to realize that was a problem. But when I ran it saying, yo, we got to stop people from molesting our children, I was like, whoa, these are some brothers I like. And they were just everyday brothers. They wasn't Muslim, they wasn't Christian, they weren't Jew, but they believed in God, but they was hard dudes from the street, but they were intelligent brothers that made good decisions, but, you know, they were fighting. So I was like, I like this. This is a nice combination. You got to read. You got to be aware. You can't just throw stuff out there. But you got to crack heads, too. You know, we fought drug dealers and put them out of communities. We did a lot of stuff. So I gathered that organization, and then pretty much that was it, because that's where I really learned manhood. You know, I had learned a lot of other stuff intellectually, but I didn't have a father in my life. So being around all these hard-nosed brothers, I realized, you know, like looking back on it, how effeminate. I wasn't never gay, but I wasn't a man's man. You know, I wouldn't walk into a room and command respect from men because I didn't know the things a man's supposed to do. And just being around hard men that do hard things just makes you harder if you want to last. And I'm the kind of dude that lasts. You know, I stayed in there and learned, you know, the profile of manhood and how to be a man. And so eventually my time at that organization, 15 years there, kind of came to an end, and I came out and started my own organization. And when I originally started it, really when I originally left, I didn't intend to start an organization, but I started realizing I don't know anything anything to do with my spare time. Like if I'm not at a job, I don't know nothing to do but to fight for black people. I don't know nothing else. I mean, I don't have a concept of what else you can do with life that will be enjoyable, but doing something that helps black people, fighting white supremacy, is just, I don't know anything else. That's all I've done since a child, try to understand the world and fight for my people. So eventually a few people wanted to help me and support me, so I ended up saying, look, I'm going to start an organization, and I started it, to be 100% honest. I said, I'm probably going to die within the first 365 days because I'm going to start an organization that talks direct, even more direct than the organization I was in before. So I'm not going to cut anything. It's going to be straight, no chaser, and anything about it. And that's what I thought would happen. And then I did it for a year, did 2 years, then 3 years, now it's 4 years. And it's like, let me see, 2009, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, no, 2010. Yeah, like 4 years, about 3, 4 years, something like that. So I started the organization in 2010, so about three and a half, something like that. But anyway, I just keep moving, just keep going, and I don't know anything else.
I mean, that's amazing, too. And also, I heard in an older interview you did a couple years back, you talk about the influence. I think the creator for the Internet, what was meant for evil, whatever, is for the good, because I have a chance to access videos. I always tell people you can develop a profound learning curriculum that's based on compiling YouTube videos. And I've been blessed. I know you've been blessed by this brother, too, as well, Lester Middleton. You talk about his influence as well. From For the People out of South Carolina. And I actually consider South Carolina and Louisiana the most African states in the country because, as you already know, Marcus Garvey's strongest support came out of Louisiana, and that's where Huey Newton from as well, as Geronimo Pratt and a couple other freedom fighters. So I want you to talk about also the influence of Lester Middleton on your journey and on your persona.
Man, I'm going to be honest with you. It's no possible way that I would have been who I am to Lester Middleton and For the People. Because he had a program for people that don't know. It was called For the People. And basically he interviewed the Grandmaster teachers like Dr. John Henry Clark, Dr. Francis Rosen, Dr. Joseph Ben Yakinen, and so many other brothers and sisters who are doing great work for our people. And in D.C., it used to come on Channel 32, PBS. And it used to come on that and Tony Brown's Journal. They come on back to back. And originally, my mother knew because I was a child, because I wanted to watch cartoons every morning. And she knew that if she tried to make me watch it, I wouldn't watch it. So what she did, she was real clever. It was a color TV. We only had one color TV. And the color TV was in the living room. And I had a little teeny TV in my room. But, of course, Saturday morning, I want to go watch the color TV. So what she did was she put the color For the People, like 12 noon came on, and she would put that on the color TV, and I'd be like, no, I want to watch this. She said, no. But I want to watch cartoons. She said, go back to your room and watch cartoons. So eventually one time I wanted to see the color TV. I sat down and started paying attention. And the first one I ever watched, Mr. Bill Middleton was interviewing Dr. Asa Hilliard. And Dr. Asa Hilliard was talking about how the first story of a God, the God that African people worshipped, and any people worshipped on the planet, was Asar. And he was resurrected, and this the X on his chest, and it meant resurrection. And then later he would begin to teach about Amen, and he was teaching about the resurrection and what that meant, and that God was black. And I just never forget sitting there. It was like the best thing I ever heard in my life. I was like, wow, God is black. Man, that's good news. You know what I'm saying? Because I sure wasn't looking at this white boy on the wall. I never got down with that. So the beginning process of actually being able to conceive the idea that the creator of the universe is black, and that I can see the creator in other black people and myself, happened right there with For the People. When I started getting the history of ancient Kemet and the black God that resurrected, and I was like, wow, man, this is incredible. And so it was that program that I used to sit and watch on a regular, consistent basis every Saturday. Got to the point where I would tape them all and tape them and watch them back to back. And I'd watch him, and I'd watch him over and over and over again. And so my mind began to develop this, when I was talking about before, at a young age, this blackness, even though I wasn't able to, I didn't have enough experience to put it all into work and play. But I had the foundation that would later grow into the person I am. So that program, in terms of the African Center Enlightenment, was critical. And I would say the only that same type of influence, Kathy Hughes, I know that she's doing the Uncle Tom thing today. But when I was growing up in D.C., it was different. She was the most radical thing on the radio. And she was talking about what we as black people need to do. We need to get these Koreans out of our community, have our own stores, and get our economics together. And she was hardcore. And I used to listen to her when she used to regularly have Big Gregory. Sometimes she would do it for a whole week or a whole month. He would be her co-host. And I can remember sitting down, listening to Dick Gregory. Now, I'm a child, man. I don't remember what year it was, but I was very, very young. And maybe 10 or so. And I remember him talking about the Atlanta. And I remember that I'm sitting here now, I can remember him saying, see, this is the World Health Organization. They're kidnapping black children and cutting out their sex organs to do experiments on them. And that this guy, Juan Williams, is not really guilty, or that this is the World Health Organization, and this is a conspiracy that they're doing some cancer research or something like that. And they need genitals, so they're stealing black children to do it. And I never forget saying, man, this is some evil stuff we dealing with. So I'm listening to Dick Gregory growing up. Like sometimes, like I say, he might be on for a month at a time. At least that's my recollection with Kathy. So every morning, I'm jumping up at 6 o'clock before school because I got to hear Dick Gregory and Kathy. He was talking about this stuff, then I ended up going to go to school, But I have to go to school as a holiday. I have a whole day, and I'm listening to this stuff, and I'm getting enlightened about what's going on.
Yeah, it's interesting. I know Wayne Williams, Atlanta child murderer. I know not a couple of years ago, Soledad O'Brien, when she was working with CNN, she actually did an interview with him alleging that he was trained by the CIA. He was part of some type of special CIA program. And that was fascinating, man. But I'm glad that you had this foundation like that. That's incredible that your mama had this type of foresight. And what made your mom, you think, inspire her to educate you in that way? What inspired her to get you prepared to deal with white supremacy?
She told me that when she was a child, that my grandfather, he was a very, very good man. My granddaddy, Roy Hill, named Roy Hill. And I love my granddaddy, man. He was a good dude, but he died. I was really young, like 5 or so when he died. But he was like, that was my buddy, man. He loved me to death, man. But anyway, my granddaddy, my mother was small. She had a dog. They had a dog. And she loved this dog. This was her buddy. And she was, there was a white male that moved in next door. And the dog used to bark a lot. And this white boy used to come to my granddaddy and complain about this dog. And so my grandfather, the white boy came and he was incensed. So you better do something about that dog, boy. And my granddaddy took that dog into what we call the country. Now, in Virginia is the country, but then you got the country in the country. Now, when you in the country and you say the country, that means you're talking about the backwoods. Like,
right, exactly.
Right. So even this dog wasn't going to be able to find his way home. So, so he took him in the country and just dropped him off out the car and then left him. And so, and just for people to understand, now remember, my granddaddy didn't have, I don't think he had a 5th grade education. And he had seen people lynched. He had known people to get murdered and taken away and never come home. So, folks was about killing black folks. And, my grandma and my granddaddy had a rifle at the door. So he knew enough to have a rifle at the door, but in his mind, he didn't want to take no risk with this devil over no dog, and so he went and got rid of the dog. But from my mama's perspective as a child, she didn't understand why her daddy didn't stand up to this white boy. It was his dog. He had a right to have his dog. And my mother said she made up her mind that if she ever had a son, that he wouldn't be afraid of white folks. She said that day and moment, she made up her mind, if I have a son, he ain't going to be afraid of no white folks. That's son.
Wow. Now, do you have any, I know you talked about your grandfather's fear of white people and white supremacy, but also you had some uncles, uncle correct, that was lynched in Virginia. Is that correct?
Yeah, in the same town that my grandfather was with my grandmother. My grandmother's uncle, Uncle Joe, was basically, he was walking down the street, and these 2 whiteys had raped this white female. And so they raped her, I guess, and I don't know the way the South worked, but this is how the way I understood it from the way my grandmother explained it to me. Basically, they raped, they needed a fall guy for it. So they came up to my Uncle Joe and was like, you raped this white girl. Now, he ain't had no education. These white folks telling him stuff. He just scared to death, man. He don't know what to say or what not to say. He don't really understand what's going on. So they force him to give a confession. Then he give a confession, and then they lynch him. And the way my grandma, she said, when they lynched my Uncle Joe, that it was the worst storm she ever seen in her life when they went and lynched him. She said she'd never forget it. I told her about this before and when she told me, she just get quiet and say it was the worst storm that she ever remembered in her life was that night when they lynched my uncle.
Oh, wow. You know what year that was? How long ago was that?
Nah, I really, whenever she talk about it, she'll say it, and then she'll get kind of like she don't want to talk about it. So I didn't I wish I would have before she passed, give more specifics on it. But nah, I don't even know if it happened in Emporia or the neighboring community around Emporia, Greenville County. So I'm not sure, but I know it was right in that area because it was our uncle and she knew about it. Everybody in the town knew. So, of course, my grandfather, who's a little older than my grandmother, he lived. So he knew what could happen. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, that's a reality that people don't understand. That's not even like, they still hanging black folks from trees. To be honest with you, you already know, doing your investigation about what happened in Delaware and some other places. But that's a reality that we still have to deal with. That's trauma passed from generation to generation. Now, is it true that Nat Turner, when he was hanged or executed by the state, that there was a terrible thunderstorm as well? I know you're an expert on it. I'm not sure. Was there a storm as well when Nat Turner was hanged?
I'm not going to say I'm an expert, but I'm going to say I have heard that, but I don't want to be dishonest. I haven't done research about that. Yes, but I do know this. I do know that miles away, where I'm talking about all these things happen in my family, that's only 10 miles away from Nat Turner. What people don't know is that Nat Turner, after his rebellion, it happened August 21st, 1831. After his rebellion, he was caught in October, and he was hung in December, I think. What happened, the whites were so shook up behind Nat Turner's rebellion that the Virginia Assembly voted, and only by 4 votes. In other words, it was 7-vote difference. But if 4 people had voted the opposite direction, they were going to ban slavery. That's how... You got all these political figures that come together. And if 4 of them, so we're talking, I don't know the number, might be 70, 80, but it was a lot of them. They were so scared that they were like, we need to just go ahead and end slavery because that's how bad Nat Turner's rebellion shook them up. I'm bringing it up to say to people, during his time, because they clamped down on black people so hard in Virginia after the rebellion, at the moment, people were resentful for what he did. But what people don't realize is that that's why 30 years later, 34 years later, the Civil War comes, because whites had it in their mind that they had to transfer from a system that relied on forced, because that forced labor base could at any moment turn and become a disaster for this country. Even if we didn't win in the rebellion, completely destroy the economy of this country, which was a threat to the survival of this nation that could change at any given time. So they decided that they had to change from a slave-based economy to an industrial economy. Without Nat Turner's rebellion, and no rebellion like that afterwards, it may have never ended, but certainly it wouldn't have been 1865. So it was one of the key events in the history of this country that actually ended slavery and chattel slavery in this country.
Yes, and I looked it up. Nat Turner was born October 2nd, 1800 in Southampton County, Virginia, and he was killed November 11, 1831 in Cortland, Virginia. And also I want to play for you a quick clip. I had a chance. I'm glad that you had a chance to talk to the elders. I know that you really respect the relationship. And I always tell people that the key to any successful movement, you got to have intergenerational collaboration. You got to have people from different generations working together, sharing information and building. And I had a chance recently to go down to Charleston, South Carolina, to visit with my great-uncle, my Uncle Frenchie. His name is James French Sr. He actually owns the oldest black-owned newspaper in the state of South Carolina that he founded called the Charleston Chronicle. And we have a very interesting family history as well. That's my paternal grandma's brother. They the last two of 10. And his name originally was not, the family name was originally not French. It was changed because of what happened with my great-grandfather. I want to play this quick clip, Brother Genie, and get your thoughts about it, because, you know, this is important. But I'm going to play this quick clip why they had to change their name.
That's fine. Now tell me about the name, what happened, what we had to do to change the name.
See, my daddy come out of Greenville. They had a farm down there, and what happened was, there used to be a white farmer that lived next door. And this farmer had this damn bull on his pasture. And whenever my mama be out there hanging up them clothes, that old bull had a tendency to charge the fence line. So my daddy got tired of that nonsense. My dad was about 6'4", carried a damn wide herb kind of pistol all the time. So one day my mama there hanging the wash. Here come that damn bull. So my daddy went over there to tell him about that bull. And of course, you don't let no dark-skinned man. My dad was jet black. So he told my dad unkind words, you might say. And my dad had just turned right around, passed on to me. Went back in the house, got his shotgun. He come back out there and went over to that farmer's neighbor's house and killed him. Shot him out of his damn sneakers. Because he had to leave town the same damn day.
In Greenville.
Yeah.
South Carolina.
Yeah.
What year was that?
I don't remember. I got it in the book.
Okay.
Anyway, they went on, ended up in Joplin, Missouri. And finally migrated to Kansas, right down the road there. But they had to change my name. That's how I got this looking name French. Where all the rest of it come from. But it was quite a history.
And that's the reason why I'm talking to you today, Brother Genie, because if my great-grandfather did not kill that white man that day, I would not be here, because he moved to Kansas City, Kansas. That's when he had his 10 kids, with my grandmother being one of his 10 kids. So that's the reason why I'm talking to you today. But I love your lectures. I love them because of, like, the information you have in your lecture, and you do a great job of presenting your point of view. But I like the fact you said in one of your lectures, several of your lectures, about how we never really emphasize our victories. We always talk about our tragedies, or the powers that be always want to talk about the tragic narrative of the black experience. Please start emphasizing our victories.
Yeah, bro, I'm sitting here like with chills in my spine. I'm loving the story, man. It's when I talk to black people, and I realize why our people don't think that we can win and we can fight, because whites like to colonize information. So, like that story, for young people to hear that, imagine a room, an auditorium of young black children sitting in there listening to you can see the children's eyes light up and say, man, he shot that white boy just for talking. The white boy didn't even hit him. He just called him some N-words. So then it makes them go, should I call myself the N-word? It makes them go, do I have to be afraid to do well in school and think that I'm white just because I want to learn, it starts changing the whole way that their mind and perception operates, because that idea of this white God, Rambo figure that can't be destroyed is erased with reality in stories, real stories of our people who stood up for themselves. And so what white folks do to make sure that our children don't get captured by those ideals and ideas that was when we got hung. We don't talk about the stories when they got hung, and we need to start talking more about the stories when we come out on top. And I really appreciate that story.
I really appreciate the stuff you have been doing. I just think that a lot of times my problem with us as a people is that when white folks do something, quote unquote, that's not approved of by the majority of them, they don't get rid of their people. They just move them around. You look at Don Imus and Paula Dean. But with us, we want to get rid of our people. But we need people like you and other folks as well to speak out on these things. We might not all agree, but we can agree to disagree, but we also be agreeing on one thing. Black folks need to help themselves. We need to do for self. I mean, I don't know what it's going to take, whether it be Trayvon Martin. I know you talked about this a little bit. Whether it be Katrina, whether it be a whole bunch of stuff. We got to start doing for self. We got to start making ourselves a priority. And that's what I'm getting from you, the fact that you're putting black people first. You're a race first type of guy. You're a throwback. That's what I get from you.
Yeah, and to your point, to be 100% honest, at this point, my assessment would be very similar to the Haitian Revolution. And it's a point I want to make to people that I'm going to say what my assessment is. We shouldn't use history just for the history's sake. We got to start learning lessons from history. That's what's called wisdom. You learn it, you understand it, and then you can apply it. In the Haitian Revolution, it was very unfortunate because the Haitians could have won that proper with Book Betty's prayer and then the assault on the whites. They could have won that war in 3 years in a totality, at least by 1780. But the problem was they wanted to keep negotiating with the white folks. The reality of it, though, is, unfortunately as it was, what drew the Haitians together in the perfect unity that it took for them to win was the evil of Rochambeau, the butcherous, murderous rage of this white male sent by Napoleon to exterminate the Africans in Haiti. That is what galvanized the black people to defend themselves. I hate to say this, but when we were talking earlier about this civil war, this country and just send it to complete depression and anarchy. And when they do, they're going to be trying to take the guns away from these rednecks. These rednecks ain't giving up their guns. So they're going to do two things. They're going to turn the rednecks against black people to enslave all of us and incarcerate all of us. The ones they don't kill to incarcerate, to be a new slave base. But then at the same time, they're going to come to get us to help arm us, the ones that us that'll fight, to go take the guns away from these rednecks. So my point is, we're going to be in a situation where we have to have some political astuteness to know what our position is going to be. But what's going to happen? Similar to the Haitian Revolution. Thing we saw during the Bush Brown Massacre that we call Hurricane Katrina. It's going to be much worse than that. They coming door to door, they snatching people out, you're never going to see your families again. It ain't but a few years away. It's not like 10, 20 years away. This is coming very shortly. When this intense brutality and genocide of black people begins, there will be those that will say, okay, now we'll unify. It may be too late for many, but that's when it's going to happen. Unfortunately, that's when it's going to happen.
Well, you made some great points, but I just think that, with the Katrina thing, the fact, it was kind of strange to me, man, because, one thing Dick Gregory talked about, even during the L.A. riots, doing Rodney King's L.A. riot thing, that a lot of people were arrested, but they were not accounted for. If you look at what happened in Katrina, I know Cynthia McKinney was on the story from day one about how they was killing black folks in mass, and there's white folks had videos on YouTube and other video outlets showing how they was going coon hunting, and people was getting their little revenge killings in, how they want to let certain folks crossing certain parishes on bridges and whatnot. Just basic human survival, not calling folks refugees and looters, but they were moving folks that never been out of New Orleans to places like Utah and Oregon and places like that. That was very strange to me. And I know after the Haitian earthquake, people talk about organ harvesting or kids being put on the sex trade or the black market, whatever, being sold to Europeans. And I just look at the fact that I recently saw this movie called Captain Phillips. I didn't pay for it. I did a screen. It was like before it came out nationwide. And I was truly disturbed by Captain Phillips. I was really disturbed by it. And I probably was only one of the few people that were disturbed by the movie because I saw what they was doing. So I just can't look at a movie or show it anymore and just look at it for entertainment. I got to dissect it. I got to analyze it. There's some stuff that you say, like how you broke down the color purple, how you basically made the color purple like it was the birth of the nation. And you made some great, interesting points. But with that movie, I found myself cheering for the Somali pirates in Captain Phillips because I knew the story behind why they were pirates. You know, because I knew the story. I knew why they had to do the things they had to do. And they were doing it out of survival. It was not necessarily out of greed and whatnot, but it was out of survival. It's because they had a lack of any type of government, lack of any protection. So I look at black folks now in this country, we have no protection. We have no entity that is actually in our best interest, that makes black people a priority in this country. And that's what's scary about a lot of things that's going on right now.
Yeah. And I talk about a few of those things, but just to say what you're saying, I haven't seen the movie with the Somali pirates, but I'll tell you one thing. Mm-hmm. I was in the movie theater watching another movie, the one about the brother from the South that was sharecropping. They killed his father. Then he came up and the butler. The advertisement for the Somali pirate thing.
Mm-hmm.
Coming up on those big boats and jumping up with them AKs.
Right.
The only thing that could have made me any happier is to see them shoot them devils. But to your point, knowing why they were doing what they were doing, I mean, even though it's an image, the inspiration that it provided, I literally jumped out of my seat. You know, my wife will tell you, I jumped up. I couldn't hold it. It was too much. Because I said, that's what we're going to have to do to these white folks. You know, we're going to have to tell them to back up. But to your point, you're talking about all the things that are happening. This is honest to God truth. Today, I opened an email from a brother. He sent me an email, and it has a story of a sister up in Rochester, New York, I think, who was pregnant, African sister pregnant. Police were on her husband, taking him down, and they were on her. And the guy starts punching her in her face. I mean, it's a white boy. And she's screaming, I have a baby, I'm pregnant. And, I mean, they just slamming her to the ground, beating her. And the people outside are like, I can't believe you're doing this to a pregnant woman, blah, 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 blah. And I already know what's going to happen, pretty much nothing. And what's happening is the reason that whites are okay with this stuff making the media and making YouTube and stuff like that is because they want us to get conditioned to feel like we can't do anything. Now, in the situations where brothers come up and shoot a white boy or take him and drag him behind a vehicle, you won't see that. And I'm telling you, when I learned that, because when I watched the Rodney King insurrection, I'll never forget, the first night it happened, I watched TV. Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget as long as I live, man. They started showing stuff because they hadn't had a chance to brace for what was happening. So they were just showing whatever was happening. And I remember I only saw it one time. I guess they went through and started taking stuff back and making sure, no, don't show that stuff because it gives people ideas. But I'll never forget, they showed his brother. He was walking in the street. He walked up. I saw the white female in the car. He pulled his gun and he shot her. And I was like, whoa. That I can't even remember now. But then all of a sudden it disappeared, and all I saw was Reginald Denny and people were looting. I didn't see the direct aggression against whites. And what I started noticing is that's what people started doing. They started doing what they saw. So I said, I get it. We will step to these crackers and deal with them. But when we deal with white folks the way we're supposed to deal with them, they don't never show that. Because then the next brother will be like, I'm going to deal with this white boy the way my mind dealt with him.
Right.
So all of our victories are captured and concealed from us, and then I got to wait till I'm an adult to find out about Robert F. Williams. But they'll throw Martin Luther King in my face all day. But Martin Luther King, relevant human being, when you put him up against Robert F. Williams, but they want me singing about holding hands with white folks every day, when during the same time, the man who was 10 times more relevant than him, I don't even know he exists. And that's what they do to us, to only give us options that allow them to be victorious.
I mean, you make some great points. I definitely agree with a lot of stuff you said. I mean, in terms of, getting the narrative out there, I think it is important that we tell our history. Like somebody said it before, they said the mass media is more powerful than any military on the planet. You know, Malcolm said it. So many folks, so many people in a tradition of the black struggle freedom movement, they knew the value of controlling their own media, whether it be Frederick Douglass or Marcus Garvey, the African Freedom Journal, Ida B. Wells Barnett, Nation of Islam. Everybody knew the value of having your own media platform to disseminate this information, because people got to know how to organize, and you organize around information. And you got to have a way to disseminate that. So I just think, it's kind of strange right now, Brother Genie, think about, black folks are catching hell in North America right now and around the planet, yet we have no control by media. When you talk about how Kathy Hughes stimulated you and inspired you to become who you are today, when she had that platform, but, if you want to, exist in capitalism, you gotta compromise or dilute the message. Hello?
I would say, yeah. Can you hear me?
I hear you.
Okay. The good thing that we have venues like yours and mine. So the programs you do, the programs we do, these are programs, I know because I used to listen to radio what it does. You have no idea, bro. I'm telling you, you have no idea the type of influence the young people who will be listening to what you're doing in their homes with their parents right now, that it's having on their mind. They never heard these in it. Robert F. Williams, who is that? Listerville Middleton, who is that? And now they got the internet, so they can go find these people, and they can go challenge what we're saying, and they can learn on their own. So it's impactful. But the thing is, we do not take a basic step for the survival of our race that would resolve a lot of our problems. And that basic step is this. We are in a war. It doesn't matter if we acknowledge it or not. We're still in a war. And it's more of a war against us since we're not participating in our own behalf. The problem is that if you're in a war, which we are, the first thing you must do is identify your enemy. Even if you don't know who your friends are, if you know who your enemies are, you have a basis to start because you know to avoid them and you know to be cautious of them. As a race of people, our children and when we feel our race, is that the foundational thing in warfare that should be done, which is enemy identification. The white race, the Arabs, these are our enemies. They hate us and they want to kill us. We do not, in a definitive, organized fashion, teach this to our children. Hence, if you are not faced with a common enemy, the idea of organizing yourself as a group to defend your interests is not that important. Because there's not a reason. The reason that people organize themselves as a tight group to protect their interests is generally because their interests are being threatened. And so afraid of hatred and afraid of being intelligent human beings that we're afraid to tell our children, hey, there's a race out here that wants to kill you. And this is how they're going to do it. And because we're afraid to identify our enemies, we can't have our own media outlets to protect our own interests because we don't know that we have our own interests because we haven't identified an enemy. And here, since we haven't identified our enemy, we haven't identified each other as brothers and sisters. And we haven't identified part of the basis of our relationship that these individuals want to do harm to us. So there is no working unity and enemy identification that would then lead to people organizing themselves. It's the foundation of our problem is our dishonesty and cowardice at admitting the fact that we have a couple of races out here, but particularly the white race that wants to exterminate our people. If we start with that as a foundational truth, then we can begin the process of being a proud, productive people and defending our interests. Without that as part of the equation, we're wasting our time.
Yeah, I'm glad you said about group participation. We're going to get some feedback or something that's going on. But I was in Atlanta several weeks ago with some friends, and I asked them, when was the last time a Jewish person was hanged in this country? When was the last time? And people say, oh, I don't know. I mean, we're sitting in Georgia, right? The last time a Jewish person was lynched or hanged in this country was Leo Frank. That was August the 17th, 1915, in Marietta, Georgia. And even then, the Jewish folks in Atlanta and the state of Georgia was organizing against it. And when Jewish people, or we call small heads, when they say never again, they mean never again. Like Israelis, these people forget that it was the Jewish bases that organized the mafia. It was the Meyer Lansky's and the Siegels and the Bokhofers. It wasn't the Luciano and the Bohemians all by themselves. It was the Jewish folks or the small heads that Italians how to organize crime in this country with the labor rackets and the garment industry and stuff like that. So that was the last time a Jewish person was ever hanged in this country or lynched was August 17, 1915. And people would say, what about Michael Schwerter and Andrew Goodman and the Freedom Summer? That's totally different. I'm talking about somebody, this was the last time. But you hear about black people. I heard about several black cases or cases this past summer in Jersey City, New Jersey. Immigrant, black, I think Kenyan immigrant was hanged from a tree in a park. You talk about Cody Ingham in Athens, Texas. You could talk about what happened with Brother Kendrick Johnson down in Georgia and Valdosta. So I'm just saying, you never hear about a Jewish or small head, as you would call it, hanging from a tree. The last time it happened was 1915. So that's the power of group participation and controlling your institutions. You get some things done. You can actually protect your people.
And like you said earlier, targeting Germans. Germans on their deathbed, they going to get them and saying, you committed a Nazi crime, we're going to lock you up. So it means that the reason they can do that because they've identified enemies. They've identified Pan-Africanists as their enemies. Mm-hmm. So they try to disenfranchise and economically bankrupt Pan-Africanists the same way Morris Dees did with bankrupting the Ku Klux Klan. They've identified as enemies. They've identified white racist organizations that are non-Jewish controlled that recognize Zionism as a problem. They recognize them as enemies. So they go and fight these organizations. They've identified their enemies. Their enemies are who they and that is one of the things that brings them together. Many times they don't agree on nothing, but they agree that they're going to destroy others and they go do it. They agree to whatever degree they're defending themselves. Usually they're doing harm to others, but if they call it defending themselves, they agree that they're going to do it on the basis that they collectively have enemies that would destroy them, and so they want to destroy their enemies first to protect themselves. As African people, until we collectively, even a group of us, identify that we have an enemy in the white race and talk straight, these whites are our enemies, there's nothing that we can do on a practical basis to defend our interests, and we are going to get exterminated. That's the bottom line.
I'm good. And you make some interesting points because you were saying that I'm thinking this. But I like talking to people that stimulate my intellect. That really get me thinking about some things. Because as you saying all this stuff about identifying your enemy, I just go back to my uncle, my great uncle, who talked about his father killing that white man to protect his mom. He's talking about when he was in Vietnam, how the Viet Cong would he was in the U.S. Navy. They was patrolling the Mekong Delta. He talked about how the Viet Cong would let them pass, the black soldiers or black Navy men pass on the boats, and they actually would attack the white boat. And how sometimes he actually was a guest of honor in the house of a Vietcong. They brought them home, you know, some food, you know, let us say you want some women, you know. But the thing about it is, people don't understand that Ho Chi Minh used to come to America all the time to listen to Marcus Garvey speak in Harlem. He used to listen to Marcus Garvey speaking. This is a guy who led the Vietnamese liberation thing, the Viet Cong.
That's right. We don't understand. I'm gonna say it like this: the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey and his UNIA was a foundational prototype for the Viet Cong, for Hitler's SS, for Che Guevara and Fidel Castro. People don't understand that. I mean, they use the Haitian Revolution in terms of the military perspective, but in terms of the nationalism, the foundational nationalism, the concept of developing oneself into a national for one's interest, all of that was taken from the organizational skill and organization of Marcus Messiah Garvey. And where he had a Black Legion, even though it didn't get to the point of actual military combat in many cases, the structure of it being a design to do so became what you know as the SS in Germany, became the Cuban Revolution in that army, became many of the African leaderships groups to fight for independence in Africa. So we have the answers and solutions of how to win. But until you identify who you're fighting against, you don't even have a basis for. And that is the central ingredient in what prevents us from being an organized people and moving forward. Because once you have an enemy, then now the next step is, well, I have to separate myself from my enemy, which means now you have to have a knowledge of yourself. Because you see that you got an enemy, and you identify them. Now you got to say, well, who am I? And why are they fighting me? Now you got to know who you are. Once you have a knowledge of self, you can tell your people who and what they are. You build a dignity and pride. Now you study who your enemy is that you've already identified. And then you separate from them as much as possible because you don't want to be like them because that's who you got to fight. Now you have a basis for a good fight. Until you start by saying, that's my enemy over there. Determining who you are and who your enemy are. You can't do nothing. And what we would do if we began to do that, we would actually realize we got the Marcus Garveys, we got the Ida B. Wells Barnetts, we got the Robert F. Williams, we got the Black Panther Party, we got the Nation. We have the infrastructure and the history of having successfully done this before. All we got to do is stop trying to integrate with our enemy and stop trying to be like our enemy. And organize ourselves to have some self-respect and dignity so we can fight with those who's fighting with us. It ain't even that hard.
You know what you bring is an interesting point. Like I said, I like talking to people there. I mean, I like this conversation. So many people, like you said, have benefited from this dialogue. And I was thinking about what you said about the Nation of Islam by Marcus Garvey. You know, the group that I think about that people don't really recognize because we've been, I guess, poisoned to look at them in an objective way, some of us have, are the Mormons. The Mormon religion is the fastest growing religion in America. The Mormons, their founder, Joseph Smith, was lynched by other white people. They had to fight the government several years before the Civil War. They fought in Utah and Wyoming territories. The President James Buchanan sent out federal troops to fight the Mormons. You had other white settlers fighting the Mormons, but they always fought back. They massacred, they worked with the Native Americans, they massacred other white settlers. They beat the federal troops that James Buchanan sent into Utah and Wyoming territory. They got their own state known as Utah. They organized Las Vegas with the mafia. They controlled Howard Hughes' estate, and they almost had a person win the White House. See, that's where the Nation of Islam should be going. That's the blueprint right there. That we weren't going that way with Elijah Muhammad. And people don't want to always, they want to belittle Elijah Muhammad's contribution. Whether you a Muslim or you an atheist or a Christian, you got to respect the blueprint and the plan he came up with to help black people. Because a lot of the stuff he did was on point. And people got to give him his credit for that, in spite of what they may think about his personal whatever flaws. But the Mormons are interested because they recognize who their enemies were early in the game. And that's why they're not only surviving, but they're thriving.
And to go to your point, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, really, if you want to know, carry on from the Marcus Messiah Garvey movement. Yes, we know the Viet Cong was structured from Ho Chi Minh studying the Garvey movement, but the Nation of Islam would be the UNIAs. It would be the spiritual component, the religious component of the UNIA, and the teachings of self-respect and dignity, the teachings of Garvey. And the FOI would be the Black Legion, Garvey's protectorate force. And the Red Cross nurses would be the MGT. And essentially what Elijah Muhammad did was took a formula that had worked, and he made it stronger and solidified it. It could have if he went forward. In fact, to your point, even though it wasn't done as a whole entire state, the Mormons fought and got their state, but the Nation of Islam fought and got something very similar. The police were starting to seize and try to destroy the nation. The police got brutalized so many times trying to come up in mosques and got beat down, killed some of them. Some of them disappeared and they never saw from them again. Some of them got their heads cut off and thrown in the woods. That they passed laws in America making it illegal for the police to go into Black Nation of Islam mosques. I'm going to say that again. It wasn't by no legislation. They got so many and killed trying to run up on the Nation of Islam that they finally complied and said it's causing more damage than it is good. And they made a law saying the police have no authority to go up into a Muslim, Black Muslim mosque because it causes too much problems and threat to the lives of other officers. So if the Nation of Islam had kept the direction of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad and Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad and those of that like and ilk, it would be a powerhouse today.
And we got one more. I want to get this brother, Brother Sheikh Akbar. He's been waiting patiently. Again, I want to thank him for listening in and offering some input. Brother Sheikh, are you there? Brother Sheikh Akbar, you there? I guess he's just listening in. Brother Genie, I want to thank you once again for doing my show. I really appreciate it. As always, the gems you've been dropping, and I thank you for your service to our people. Sometimes we don't do a good job of honoring those who help us, help ourselves. But I want to thank you for all that you have done on behalf of people, for taking a stand, for giving people the courage of their own convictions to not, be counted out, not to give up, give out, or give in, but keep on keeping on. So you have anything you have to say in closing?
I just want to thank brothers and sisters for tuning in and listening. Horizon.com. You can see some of our videos, free downloads. They're not going to be up there for free much longer, so go there, get the free download lectures, watch them. You really will enjoy them. You'll pick up a lot of information, and you can share a lot of good information with your children as well. And we thank you, brothers and sisters, for tuning in, and we thank you for inviting us, brother.
That's problem. It's WarrenTheHorizon.com, and there's a lot of great information out there. And there's more than just, people get caught up on, he's caught up into the homosexual thing, he's caught up into white people. But really a lot of stuff that you present, Brother Genie, is about helping black folks love themselves. And that's what I get from a lot of stuff, the lectures and whatnot. And if you was really out there to profit, be an opportunist, then a lot of stuff that you made available to the public would not be free. So this is powerful stuff that he got out there, ladies and gentlemen, scholars and laymen, boys and girls. WarrenTheHorizon.com. And with that, I want to say, Brother Genie, thank you so much for tuning in and for participating. Really appreciate your contributions, and the best is yet to come, sir. In the words of the great Duke Ellington, that's famous Washingtonian, we love you madly and keep on doing what you're doing.
Yes, sir. Peace, brother.
Attn.